Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
The Rock Review is so thrilled to have an Emmy award-winning actor, singer, songwriter, director. He does it all, and he's got a brand new video out, a great song. Joe Morton, thanks for coming on the Rock Review.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
You know, it's like preparing for your interview, Joe. I've been such a huge fan of your work through the years. I mean, over 70 movies and, you know, hit TV shows, Eureka, Scandal, all the things that you've been in. Also, movies like Terminator 2 and Speed 2. And I mean, it just goes on and on. And one of my favorites, as I was telling you before we started the interview, you were so incredible in the last Blues Brothers movie.
Blues Brothers 2000 was just so much fun. I mean, it's funny, when I think about doing that film, there was an opportunity that I had that I missed. We had a lunch break, and I looked to the side of the stage, and suddenly all the guitars were set up in this V shape on the side. And I thought, oh my God, you know what I'm gonna do? As soon as I finish lunch, I'm gonna run back and take a picture. Well, by the time I came back from lunch, everybody had grabbed their guitars, and so it was gone.
Wow.
But it was that kind of adventure almost every day. I mean, you know, my day would start with a conversation with Lou Rawls, or, you know, the first song that I shot was with James Brown and Sam Moore. And then I got a chance to talk to them about, because they had known each other for years and years and years. They had been in a group together, I think called the Hawks or something. I forget what they were.
You're right, yeah. Yeah, because I've had them on before.
Oh, so it was just an amazing thing for us to do. I mean, I know a lot of people aren't necessarily Blues Brothers fans, but you know what? When you hear that kind of music and you get to play along with those kinds of artists, it was remarkable. Erykah Badu, you know, when we do that sequence, I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing.
And you put it in so easily. And once again, like you and I were talking about, you know, your new song and video, which, you know, I don't know which I love more, your voice or the bass line in Wake Up America. And the video, I mean, it's such a powerful song. And I've been talking to some friends, and I know you feel the same way, being so tied to music and all the musicals you've done. But in these times, you know, it's so great to have music that inspires you. How did this whole video and music thing come together, Joe?
Well, my longtime best friend, Kenny Lehman, and I, you know, have been sort of working on music together for a long time. And we kept talking about the division in this country. And we thought we should do something to speak about it. So he started writing music, I started writing lyrics, and we started trying to figure out, you know, how to do that, most importantly, without offending one side or the other. The point of the song was to be nonpartisan. The point of the song was to talk about making a more perfect union. The point of the song was actually to talk about red and blue, if you will, coming together so that we can unite this country, as opposed to the division that we've been facing for at least the last 8 to 10 years. So that's where the impetus for the song came from.
I'll tell you what, it's just the lyrics are just great. And also the music. And I mean, it's just, you know, even not watching the video, which I've watched the video several times, but the music just holds up. Your voice is just amazing in it. So I got to ask you this, Joe. Are you going to be doing more music coming up? Are you thinking about an EP or an album? I mean, in between TV, movies, and all the other things you do, directing, acting, I don't know.
Well, again, that's kind of how all this started. Kenny and I were working on an album that I was putting together. So we were doing completely different music. They're mostly love songs and, you know, songs about life and that kind of thing. And then as we were rolling along in that, we decided we would sort of shift our focus to Wake Up America. So there is more music on its way, very different than this. And then I'm actually looking at writing some other songs that are closer to what this genre is. I've been working on a project that involved James Baldwin, and he said so many wonderful things that I'm actually trying to find a way to take some of what he said and turn that into a song. I also, when this pandemic started, I looked around the world and it felt like the world was upside down. So I'm working on a song called Nature is Turning the World Upside Down.
Well, yeah, and I like it too because your lyrical style too, and you've got such a great voice, as I mentioned. But it's almost like spoken word. It feels like, you know, like jazz meets Lou Reed, you know, stuff like that. It's just a great sound. So I can't wait to hear more of the music.
Yeah, then in that particular song, in Wake Up America, that was the idea, to bring in as many genres as possible. It was Kenny's idea, actually, to bring in the funky bass, which at first I wasn't sure. And then when he brought it in, I thought, oh, that's great. That's just terrific. And then the rest of it that we use in the song.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring up also, what a great body of work, and you continue to do so many creative things in all your endeavors, Joe. But particularly that, how much music you started out with, being in Hair and Salvation and all of these things, to where really, some people that, like myself, that know you from your movies and TV may not realize that your foundation was really in music.
In music and the theater. I mean, that's where I started. Yes, the very first thing I did on Broadway was I fortunately was able to get into Hair, which was kind of a feat. I think I must have auditioned for that show at least a dozen times, maybe more, before they actually accepted me as part of the tribe. But I was told often when I auditioned to dress down. Now, I was literally just out of college, so I wasn't quite sure what that meant. But I just kept looking around, and so I, torn jeans, big leather hats, and boots, and the rest of it, and I finally got in the show, which was amazing. And usually when I talk about Hair, people always ask the big question: did I do the nude scene? And what's great about that is when you join the show, you didn't have to. No one was forced to do the nude scene. So for the first 2 weeks while I was in the show, I literally stayed underneath the covers and would not emerge naked onto the stage. And then after 2 weeks, I thought, you know what? That's what the show is about. Since we don't have to do it, I'll try it. If I really hate it a lot, I never have to do it again. And so I finally stood up and realized I didn't feel any more naked than I had ever felt on stage. And so it went on.
Is that kind of confidence? But just like we were talking to, Joe, with your film and TV roles, you always come across so believable, and it's not, and certainly no knock on other actors and actresses that are kind of, they're just being themselves. You become the role you're in, and I think that, and it's like a different person in each one. That has to be why you keep getting all these great jobs, with acting and whether it be TV, film, Broadway, whatever. You're just so diverse.
Thank you. I mean, that was the object of the game, if you will, was to find ways. When I started in this business, a lot of the roles that were being offered to Black men in particular were, drug dealers or pimps or some untoward character one way or the other. And I made a very deliberate and conscious decision not to take any of those kinds of roles. So the idea then was I needed to be able to play as many diversified roles as possible in order to stay in the game, which fortunately is the way things turned out. And the fact that I could bounce back and forth between the stage and the screen was extremely helpful.
Well, I was mentioning to you, I was a fan of your, when you directed the work on Scott Joplin also, because I'm such a huge fan of that music growing up. And once again, that had to be a treat where you stepped out of the acting role or the music role, but actually jumped into directing.
That play was about one of the only collaboration that Scott Joplin had with a young man by the name of Chauvin, who helped write that piece of music. What's great about that is Scott never collaborated with anyone. That's the only tune he ever collaborated on. And it's one of his most popular songs and most beautiful songs. Chauvin was an incredible piano player. And in that production, we managed to find a young man who not only looked like Chauvin, but could play piano.
Oh my gosh, how fortunate. Well, I want to bring up also, Joe, since you're always doing such creative things and still moving forward, you've got an HBO show coming out. And we were talking before we started the interview, the amount of talent in this show is like, you're like a magnet for these things. I mean, you got Oprah in this.
Yeah, I wouldn't put all that on me. I don't think I'm a magnet here. I think it's the material that's the magnet. I mean, Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me originally was a book that he wrote for his son when his son was turning 15 years old, when Michael Brown was was shot and left in the middle of the street, was the impetus for writing at least the beginning of the book, where he talks about all the number of young Black unarmed men who were shot down and murdered by white policemen. So that's part of what the film is about as well. But it's also about Ta-Nehisi Coates at Howard University and how much he loved the university and what the diversity of that university was all about. How he met his wife, how his son was conceived, and the rest of it. So that part of it's a gorgeous piece altogether. I mean, it talks about the beauty of what, when you hear the phrase Black is beautiful, he actually gets into why that phrase makes sense. I would really, really advise anyone who gets an opportunity to see this. It's a very powerful, very moving, very beautiful film. So please, if you get a chance to watch it, please do.
Well, I want to make sure that our viewers know, Joe, where to find you on with your website, with your social media, everything. You got new music, you got a great film coming out. Where should they go?
On almost most of the social media platforms, it's Joe the Morton. So whether it's Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, that's my handle, Joe the Morton. I don't have a website. Wake Up America can be found on YouTube, but it can also be heard on all the other streaming platforms.
Well, and I certainly hope that a number of radio stations and it gets added into playlists, because I got to tell you, once again, the powerful music, the bass line, the imagery with the video, and then your voice, of course, makes it. I got to thank you, Joe Morton. Thank you so much for coming on The Rock Interview.
My pleasure. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for inviting me.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.